All the women who's overstimulated, throw your hands up at me. All the mamas who's popping toddlers, throw your hands up at me. Listen, I hope everybody enjoyed their holiday. I did enjoy mine. But woo, the toys that come with Christmas. Let me tell you, these kids will overstimulate you, especially if they're like not old enough to like know how to figure out things themselves or how to read instructions themselves. Baby, just throw the whole Christmas away. It's funny though, because my last episode I talked about my kids believing in Santa and allowing them to believe in Santa, and I have no regrets on that. Child, why are they yelling in the house? But nonetheless, I have no regrets about that. But it's funny because the boxes for my kids' bikes were in the basement, and like up until now I had not been letting my kids come in the basement because it was down there. So my daughter came down there today while I was like either doing laundry or using the back room for something. She came down, she was like, "Are those the boxes that our bikes came in?" And I'm like, huh? She's like, "You got the boxes, you got the bikes out of those boxes?" And I'm like, "Girl, just go upstairs," because I'm like, listen, I just said I was gonna let you believe in Santa, and now you already ready to figure out how to dismantle him. Girl, just enough. But nonetheless, she had a great Christmas. My kids had a great Christmas, and so did I. But I feel like so much has happened in the last week that I just have to talk about some of it. And the reason that I feel so strongly about talking about it, it's because it has to do with my people, okay? Black Americans. Let's talk about it. It's a couple things I want to talk about with this. But first, I want to talk about my university, my alma mater, okay? I don't know if you can see. Let's see. VS, that stands for Valley State. I went to and graduated from the Mississippi Valley State University, right? And if you're not familiar with what Mississippi Valley State University is, it is an HBCU in the Mississippi Delta. It is the youngest of the 107 HBCUs in this country. It is the youngest one, right? So, because it is a university in the Mississippi Delta, which Mississippi, what's the word I'm looking for? It has a reputation that precedes itself. What did Nina Simone say? Mississippi, goddamn. Mississippi is somewhere that I've always been proud to have roots in. My dad is from Mississippi. My dad, in fact, was a sharecropper. I didn't realize he was a sharecropper until probably the last 5 or 6 years. I'm like, I always knew that he grew up picking cotton in like the 60s and stuff. And I knew he was from Jim Crow, Mississippi, but I never put 2 and 2 together that it was actually just sharecropping, because we're not taught at that point in history, we're not taught about sharecropping, or that things are presented as sharecropping. But then I really realized how deep my family's legacy is. Like, wow, a generation ago, my people were sharecropping, which is wild, right? But my dad is from Mississippi. He is from the Delta, Hollandale to be exact. And anybody who knows me knows I've always been very, very proud to be from Mississippi or have roots in Mississippi. I remember in middle school and elementary school when we would have to do, projects on states, I would always pick Mississippi, not knowing that nobody is going to fight you. Nobody else is yearning to do Mississippi or like learn the history of Mississippi. But to me, I was just always very proud of that. I don't know. I feel like if you're a Mississippian or any type of area that is very, very heavily populated with Black people, you just have a certain sense of pride. So I was always very prideful when it came to Mississippi. However, I never really knew too much about Mississippi Valley State. It is by chance, and I think by divine. I apologize. My video stopped. But you know, I always just had a sense of pride. Now, that being said, I never ever really thought that I would go to college in Mississippi. I don't know. I always wanted to go to Ohio State. And now I'm not someone who thinks less of HBCUs. I don't. I know that is the sentiment of a lot of people, including our own Black American people. But I never had a sentiment that like HBCUs were less than, or, you know, I would never go to a HBCU. I just didn't know a whole lot about them. Now, my mother was always telling me about Tuskegee. And then my mother actually did, you know, say that HBCUs might be better, but it was never something that I was particularly put on about, because I went to a predominantly white Christian high school. None of the guidance counselors were talking about no HBCUs. No one was insinuating that I might try HBCU. If I didn't actively look for an HBCU, I would have never been pushed towards an HBCU, right? How did I end up in an HBCU? Okay. Let me tell you something. College, when I went to college, I knew I was going to college. Like, I come from a family where it really wasn't an option. Even if you didn't want to go to college, you was going to college, right? So I always knew I was going to college. I had looked into like Ohio State. Ohio State was on the pricier side. And I had looked into Kent State, and my mom actually graduated from Kent State. So I knew like, okay, I can go to Kent State, whatever, keep it cool. But everybody in Cleveland goes to Kent State, or if they don't go to Kent State, they either go to Akron, they go to OU, Toledo, or BG. Like that's where most people in Cleveland go to for school. So I was like, cool, I'll go to one of those, whatever. What happened was the summer before my senior year, it was the summer before my senior year. I had went to Mississippi with my family, with my mom and my dad, and we were down there. So my mother was like, when we leave out of here, we should go to Tuskegee, because I think we were going to go to Florida, maybe, or we were going somewhere. And on the way there, she was like, let's stop by Tuskegee. So I'm like, okay, cool. So we end up stopping at Tuskegee. But before we go to Tuskegee, my mom is like, hey, why don't you check out Mississippi Valley State? Which Mississippi Valley State was where my dad went to college. He did not finish, though. He ended up joining the Army. So I'm like, okay, cool. I didn't even know anything about this school, y'all. But when I got there, despite it probably being the smallest school, the smallest campus that I had seen, I don't know. It was so personable, and I just enjoyed talking to the tour guide. I enjoyed all the people that I met along the way. I'm like, I don't know. It was really comfortable, especially coming from the background of the Christian private school, because I could do a whole thing on that. So the the high school that I went to was actually my high school and my elementary school. It was 7th grade through 12th grade. And I was in middle school from 2007 to 2009, and I was in high school from 2009 to 2013. You know what falls in that middle school year from 2007 to 2009? The election of Obama. A hot ass mess is the way that them white people acted. And it just was that was the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, these people are racist AF. Like, what's going on? Because mind you, I'm in middle school. These are my friends. So I'm thinking, so everything they're saying, though, they're children, they're hearing this from their parents, right? And I had a few teachers my homeroom teacher did some real like BS, where she basically did a whole prayer about, she was pregnant and she was like, I hope Obama doesn't make me, oh, it was one of those facetious prayers where you're not even talking to God, you're just being messy, like, oh God, I just hope that my baby doesn't get aborted or killed or whatever. Like, girl, please. So at that point, that was the first strike with them, right? The second strike, which this was about the time that I was touring Valley, was Trayvon Martin. And that one particularly hit me very hard in the way that my white peers were acting, because Trayvon Martin was the same age as me. I believe he was born in 95. I was born in 94. He would be turning 30 years old. I just turned 30 years old a couple months ago, or a month ago. That one was very hard because I'm like, the way that y'all are acting about this, we're older now, but you're treating this really crazy, because what if it was me, right? All of us are the same age, and the things that you're saying are very nasty, very vile, and the fact that you believe that this is fair and just in the way that he was murdered, disgusting to me. Okay, that was like the second strike. And then I want to say the third strike for me was when Zimmerman got off guilty. That was, I want to say, my senior year. And I was just like, I'm so done with these people. I really don't really want to be around them. Well, while I had did the tour at Valley, I had applied, you know, they asked me to do application and they had given me a full ride. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this full ride to Valley because it's an HBCU. And it was the only full ride I had. I had applied to some other schools, but this was the only one where I would not have to pay any money, right? And if you are watching and you are going to college, if you can go to school for free, absolutely do it. There are things, even if it's not the most prestigious school, there are things that you can do, networks you can join while you're in college to, you know, build that rapport to get a good job out of college. But if you can go to school and get that accredited degree for free, do it for sure. But that's basically how I ended up at Valley. It was a fluke. Like I said, I think it's divine alignment. But I ended up there just because it was free, right? And I had no idea what I was in for at all. So in summary, I attended Mississippi Valley State University, the youngest historically Black college and university of the 107, on a full ride scholarship, on a fluke, right? But it was one of the best experiences of my life. I met some of the most amazing friends that I have to this day, my truest, realest friends to this day. I learned so much about my Blackness. I learned so much about Blackness not being a monolith. I learned so much about loving myself and, you know, just being proud of my roots, all of the good things. But lately, Mississippi Valley State University has been in the news because they have been invited to play, the band, the Mean Green Marching Machine, has been invited to play at the inauguration in January. Now, if you are not from the US or you live under a rock or you're in denial, you might have heard that Donald Trump is going to be the president again. He is the current president-elect, right? So that means that if they are playing at the inauguration, they are playing at Trump's inauguration, right? A lot of people, especially with it being an HBCU, are not feeling that at all, right? A lot of Black people have very, very, very strong feelings about Donald Trump, and rightfully so, right? So, to come out and play at his inauguration is kind of insane. It is. It is. Like I said, I'm very, very, very proud of my alma mater. But I think that there needs to be some discernment and some discretion when we decide what we are going to align ourselves with, okay? But let's get into why a school like Mississippi Valley State University would even consider the opportunity to play at the inauguration for Donald J. Trump, the second time. Why would you even consider it? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's get into it. A long story short, Mississippi Valley State is a cash-stricken school. It is a cash-stricken school. It just is. I was blessed to go on a full ride scholarship, but it was just a lot of amenities that the school simply did not have or did not have the bandwidth for. Its endowment is much, much, much smaller, systemically smaller than, Ole Miss or Mississippi State or any of the bigger, universities in Mississippi that are PWIs. It's even smaller than Jackson State or Alcorn because it is the youngest, and it does not have the alumni base that a Jackson State has, right? And so when you're looking at what Valley has to do, 9 times out of 10, it has to make $1 out of 50 cents. That's just what it has to do. Which puts us in predicaments like, do we want to go play for Donald J. Trump? So from my understanding, the current band director at Valley or MVSU is from Talladega College. During his time at Talladega College as the band director there, he ended up taking the band to Trump's first inauguration from his first term to play, right? And what we saw was, a lot of people donating to get them sent there, right? Talladega College, is that in Alabama? Let me double check. Okay, yes, Talladega College is in Alabama. I thought so, but I didn't want to be incorrect because I know how people feel about the HBCUs. No disrespect at all. But he came from Talladega College, and like I said, they had done it the first inauguration of Trump during his first term. I believe, Alabama were behind them in doing so and really paid money for them to, donate it to GoFundMe's, all of that good shit, to get them there. Okay. So now Dr. Bonds, who I believe that's his name, is at Valley, right? And I could be wrong about his name. I apologize if I am, but I think it's Dr. Bonds. He's at Valley now, so I'm assuming they swung an invitation his way again, right? Because they want those black faces there. They want those black faces because overwhelmingly, 94% of black people, or 84%, I know it was 94% of black women, but it might have been 84% of black people in America did not vote for Donald Trump, right? So they want those black faces there. But what's really just a fucking shit show to me is the fact that they want them to raise $350,000, not $350, $350,000 to get there to perform. When Elon Musk, Big Daddy Musk, is your first lady, and you want this small cash-stricken black school to raise money to get there, and you're the richest man in the world, huh? That doesn't even make sense to me. Mississippi in general is one of the poorest states, right? The Delta is one of the poorest areas. And then you're trying to force people to pay to get there so that you can have that PR look. And I pray that Valley doesn't do this, because this is very different than the first time, right? The first time, yeah, people weren't fucking with Trump. We weren't, but we didn't know what to expect, right? This time, we know what Trump is saying, and we know he's talking some shit that will, if he actually moves forward, that would exponentially hurt people in the area, people who are the main supporters of Mississippi Valley State. It would hurt them in a major way, right? So to do this is a slap in the face to the area, the people, the heritage that we come from, right? So many alumni are telling you they don't want it, they can't support it. And even I didn't even read what was happening at first. I just shared it. I just shared it because I was like, oh, Valley has an opportunity. They're looking for money. Let me just share it, right? And then I saw people start discourse like, what's going on? Why would they agree to this? Why would they even want to do this? And so then I looked into it. I'm like, oh, they're asking for money, and not just money. They're asking for thousands of dollars to go be at the Trump inauguration. Of course, I'm against it, but I'm also not naive to why they would want to do it, okay? When you look at places like Mississippi, and this is no shade to Mississippi, I've said I'm very proud to have heritage there. I'm very proud. My father, I'm very proud of him, right? Mississippi is one of those states in the South that never truly recovered from the Civil War, if we're being 100% honest. Greenwood was the cotton capital of the world, okay? Of the world, not of Mississippi, not of the South, of the world. So when you look at what was the labor force, right? The black people, the enslaved black people, for why Greenwood, Mississippi was the cotton capital of the world, they just could never recover from having all of that free labor, right? But that's what makes us even sicker. Right? Greenwood, my son is named after Stokely Carmichael, better known as Kwame Ture, right? He was in Greenwood when he talked about Black Power, okay? You know, so much of the civil rights movement took place in places like, started in places like Mississippi, okay? Emmett Till was down the road. Emmett Till it was one of the key factors. The death of Emmett Till was one of the key factors in kicking off the civil rights movement to the magnitude that it eventually reached, right? So Mississippi is such a place, especially the Delta, with so much legacy to our freedom and to the movements that push towards us having equal rights. It's just a slap in the face, and I don't know, downright disgusting for us to be at this racist man's inauguration. Of course, people are going to do what they do, but I will pray and hope that people will listen to the alumni, because let us not forget Chrisette Michele. Chrisette Michele sang, she performed at the inauguration, and she has never been able to shake that. The thing is, when you are the underdog and you do some bullshit, there's really no coming back from that. And unfortunately, Mississippi Valley State is the underdog in this situation. You're not one of these elite HBCUs where, you know, people will forget about it. No, people are going to hold you to the fire. And the thing is, I remember this happening in the 2016 presidency. I remember Trump trying to have this relationship with HBCUs, and I remember how that backfired on a lot of HBCUs. A lot of HBCU presidents that chose to go and sit with Trump, you know, they felt the backlash. But when you're in a place that's poverty stricken the way that, you know, that area is, sometimes you're like, oh, well, any exposure is good exposure, right? I'll take any of it. And so I understand how we got here. And it comes down to the systemic belittling of HBCUs like Mississippi Valley State, where they don't have the money, they don't have the opportunity. But when we're coming off of the backs of things like the Ocean of Soul with Texas Southern performing with Beyonce, who is notoriously anti-MAGA, right? It's just not a good look. It's terrible, in fact. And I just hope that we have the discernment to not do this. Even if the white folks of Mississippi donate and we raise the money to get there, I would just hope and pray that this is not what we choose to do. We can only see from here, but I understand why people would be like, oh, it's about the opportunity, but more opportunity shall arise. And this one ain't it. Okay?